A shift is happening. The world is now more multifaceted and unpredictable than it has ever been. Leaders face a choice as to how to respond. What happens next matters. It matters for yourself, colleagues, your parents, your children, your future grandchildren, and for your living grandparents. What is the next act for your leadership?
Leadership is changing. At Shift Unlimited, our purpose is to work with senior leaders as you shift the way you connect with yourselves, others, and the wider world, undertaking a transformation of the self through reflection, inquiry, disruption, and experimentation. This podcast channel is focused on this as we believe your shift is unlimited.
Welcome to this podcast, focused mostly on the structure of language rather than the content of language. Today we'll share with you some linguistic tools that you can use to enable you to subtly and elegantly manage your conversations and deliver some influential presentations and conversations, whether they are as you lead, engage with external stakeholders, or have day-to-day or coaching conversations with other people, or if you're delivering a presentation. Kylie and I have been asked by many of our clients to help them with more effective conversations, and the research indicates that they are definitely not alone. So why are these simple tools so important in the world of work today? Well, research suggests that on average, there are 62 to 80 million meetings held in the USA alone each day, compared to 11 million in 1976. Managers and leaders spend on average 4.5 to 5 hours a week preparing for meetings, and at least 50% of their time is spent in meetings. 35% of leaders and employees say they spend 2 to 5 hours a day in meetings and calls with no noticeable outcomes, actions, or benefits. Ineffective meetings lead to lower engagement and morale amongst employees and team members, and 71% of managers feel the meetings are often unproductive. We have sat through a good few similarly unstructured, meandering meetings, and so we are inclined to agree with this research.
And even think that some of the numbers are a little low.
Yeah, true.
So what are the simple techniques that can make such a big difference? They are POP and the format system, and we'll talk about both of those in this episode today. Let's start with POP, which stands for purpose, outcome, and process. So let's drill into this with a little bit more detail, starting with purpose. The first P is purpose. Meetings are a lot shorter and more focused when everyone is clear about the purpose of the meeting. This answers the question, why are we having this meeting? Or why are we in this coaching conversation? If you're the person who's called the meeting, the onus of responsibility is on you to have a clear purpose for the meeting and to start the meeting by asking everyone if they are also clear with the purpose of the meeting. We guarantee it will save time, money, and confusion by doing this. If you're a coach having a coaching session, it's good for both parties to discuss the purpose and agree it together, as the role of coach is often to create the space and environment for their coachee and also to be their thinking partner. Purpose statements in this context could usually start with something like, the purpose of this meeting is to agree, ... The purpose of this meeting is to discuss, ... The purpose of this meeting is to brainstorm. The purpose of this meeting is to clarify. So think about the purpose. Is it agree, discuss, brainstorm, clarify, something else? We hope this gives you a starter for 10 on purpose. It's a really simple thing to do and quite intentional, by the way. When we work with our clients face to face, it can take them quite some time to discuss and agree what the purpose is.
The O is for outcomes. Stating clearly up front what outcomes are needed in order for the meeting to have been of value to everyone. Making time without rushing at the end of the meeting or coaching session to clarify these and agree actions and timings. That's important to increase accountability and the likelihood of moving things forward. And the final P is process. Being clear about the time and the approach for the meeting or coaching session and signposting anything that could disrupt the session. As an aside, most meetings are repetitive and boring because there is a lack of creativity in creating meeting processes in day-to-day working environments. The default tends to be discussions or PowerPoint presentations. We would encourage you to be more creative about this in your meetings so that they're more engaging, inclusive, dynamic, and thought-provoking. You can include processes like round robins, where you go around the group and everyone has a small amount of time, for example, 2 minutes, to share their thinking and insights and reflections on the discussion that you've had so far. We can do small group breakouts to have a deeper, more inclusive conversation on a subject. People are much more likely to be open in smaller groups than they are in larger ones. Then you can reconvene in the bigger group and share the group's insight. There's silent brainstorming, where people have a pen and paper and an agreed time to individually capture their creative ideas on how to do something or not do something before sharing them with the wider group. This increases creativity and reduces the likelihood of groupthink, and it's much more respectful to people with an introversion preference who like to have time to think about things before they talk about them. There's also the fishbowl process, with a small group of people sitting in the middle of a room exploring the topic, and with people sitting around the outside, listening and observing and noticing from a different perspective what's happening in the conversation. Most people dread endless meetings, one after the other. So this is also a great opportunity to get a bit more creative. One team has a cycle where every third meeting, they just have team bonding time. So far, they've done a quiz, they had a cooking lesson, and a short yoga class. This has a double benefit of keeping people connected and engaged and feeling valued as people, not just workers achieving a task. There are many more things we can do to liven up meetings and to make them more enjoyable, memorable, effective. We'll stop here for now, though, and would encourage you to keep researching and finding out creative ideas around meeting practices. When it comes to making coaching and meetings more effective and more creative and less repetitive, there are also other things we can do, including walking coaching sessions. This is particularly effective when the weather makes it possible to go outside. Using models like GROW, which stand for Goal, Reality, Options, and Way Forward. Bringing in embodied practices like breath work and meditation and movement, and saying an inquiry with questions and remaining curious before getting to solutions.
Time spent at the beginning of any meeting and or coaching conversation to share and clarify POP can be a real game changer. Doing this provides clarity and a safer space so people can speak up, they can challenge and ask relevant questions. It also significantly increases the likelihood that it will be a productive and effective meeting and an effective use of everybody's time. The second tool that we want to share with you in today's episode is the tool that's called Format. Why would you want to learn about this? Well, in life and leadership, it's the people with the most behavioral flexibility who tend to have the most influence and ability to affect change. This is because they can relate to more of the people they come into contact with, as they're prepared to flex their preferred style and approach and meet the audience where they're at. The Format model was originally developed by Bernice McCarthy in 1980. It's based on research from many fields, but mainly it is synthesis of findings from the field of learning styles and the right and left brain dominance. It suggests that there are 4 distinct phases of learning in the learning cycle that gives coaches and presenters a systematic way to share information in a way that means all of the people in the audience will understand and be able to learn from it.
So the 4 stages are as follows. And if you're Watching this on YouTube, you can see a diagram that brings this a bit more to life. Step 1, after having briefly introduced the topic, is to explain why this is of value or important to listen to, and to make this a two-way discussion if possible, as this connects and gives meaning to the person or the people you're talking with and about the topic. The why needs to be relevant to them. It answers the question, why should I get involved in this? You may have noticed that these podcasts, we often introduce and we start with why it would be relevant for you as a leader and as a coach.
And if you are familiar with some of the work of Simon Sinek, he always talks about start with why. So approximately 35% of most audiences have a preferred learning style focused on the why. They learn by listening and sharing ideas with others. These are the innovator learners. They need to understand the why of a topic before becoming open to exploring more about it. As I just mentioned, for those of you who've heard of Simon Sinek, he's written a pretty well-known book and done some TED Talks about his book, Start with Why. And he explains that the why is more important than the what or the how. So you should always start with why.
Stage 2 then is focused on the what. The what gives us the facts and helps us learn about the topic itself. It's knowledge sharing part of the conversation or the presentation. Approximately 22% of the general population have a preference for the what as a learning style. They seek facts, need to know what the experts think, and know and learn by thinking through the ideas.
And stage 3 is the how. The what and the why alone are not enough to help people really get to grips with any topic. Majority of people, if not all, have to experience, experiment, and practice for anything to become truly embodied and part of what they do on a day-to-day basis. It's estimated that 18% of the population have a preference for learning by doing. They seek to test usability. They need to know how things work and learn by testing theories to see how they work in practice. These are the people who try to build their DIY furniture without referring to the instructions. The instructions are the what. I was working with a client yesterday who was saying they love pulling apart things to understand how they're working on the inside. And actually, one of my children loves the mechanics of how a Lego Technic might move and loves to look at how the mechanics of something is working.
The final stage is the what if. This is the stage where, having learned about something and practiced it, we use reflection and inquiry to discover where we may adapt and use what we have learned in other areas of our lives or work and leadership. 25% of people have a preference for the what if. This is the space for self-discovery, where we seek hidden possibilities of application. This is the space of learning through trial and error. We can ask questions as leaders and coaches to help people think about this as follows. Having experimented with this, where else do you think you can use and apply this? What insights, questions, or reflections do you have now you've fully explored this topic? They're examples of what if questions.
We've referred to preferences of learning style here, and we'd like to emphasize that there is just a slight preference here. We all need all of these 4 learning styles to properly learn about something and to fully embody it as a lifestyle and consistent practice. And we hope that makes sense.
So we hope these 2 models help you to add some structure and a container for your conversations, such that you can be more focused and you can capture everyone's attention when you're talking around a subject. Take some time, maybe over the next week, to add or use format as you're structuring a presentation or a conversation. And we definitely recommend for the next week, at least you use POP in all your meetings and see just how much more effective they'll be. Thank you for listening to the podcast today, and do click here to subscribe to our channel. And we would love you to follow us on Instagram at @shift_unlimited.